Here's an interview from one of our past shows on Rock and Metal Revival. If you're interested in hearing full shows, go to our Facebook page and check out our list of affiliates for times and places where you can hear Rock and Metal Revival. There's brand new music from Demons and Wizards. It's called Wolves in Winter on Rock and Metal Revival. And dude, I'm just digging this album.
Oh, I love this album. I've been listening to it for the last couple weeks and just wow.
Yeah, it is. Nice. We've been listening to it since its release, and we want to welcome Jon-Schaffer to the show. Jon, welcome to Rock and Metal Revival.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, Jon, we've been fans of all the releases of Demons and Wizards, and I guess my first question for you is what got you back into the studio to record the new Demons and Wizards after 15 years?
Well, we never intended it to be that long. It's just that Iced Earth and Blind Guardian are very successful bands on a global level, and that was the biggest challenge for Hansi and I early in our careers. We were releasing albums around the same time, and we weren't touring the world. We were doing Europe, and those guys would do a couple shows in Japan. But that's it. And then an album cycle was over. But then it grew. It grew into North America. It grew into Asia. It grew into, Eastern Europe and Central America and South America and Australia and New Zealand, and it just went global. And so the demand and the touring became longer. And at some point, our album cycles, instead of being to where, okay, there's a new Iced Earth and Blind Guardian coming out within, 2 to 4 months from each other. Now it's like we're completely opposite. A new Blind Guardian comes out, and I'm in the middle of a world tour with Iced Earth. And that becomes very hard to align your schedules without interrupting the flow of your main bands. That's the reason that it took 15 years. We just had just the stars aligned.
Yeah,
we knew that they were going to. We started planning this around the Incorruptible writing sessions for me.
Wow.
And that was, we knew that we knew we could make it happen because of where Hansi was at. And I knew how much touring that I was going to schedule out for the Iced Earth, Incorruptible campaign. And actually three and a half of the songs on this album, which is A New Dawn, Invincible, Universal Truth, and Midas Disease, were written during the Iced Earth Incorruptible cycle. And I sent 3 of those songs to Hansi when I knew. I was like, okay, we're not going to use these for Iced Earth, but I'm going to send them to Hansi. And he started working on them immediately. And I told him, well, we're going to get back to this. I got to go out and do, like 100 shows on the Incorruptible cycle. So that's what we did. And we had a very strategic plan. And it was because of where they were at in their cycle and that he was focused on the orchestral album that we were able to make all this happen. So that's the only reason that it took all these years to do. We've been, Hansi and I have been like super good friends for 30 years, man. And we visit each other whenever there's any opportunity, but we just, we have been talking about doing this record for 10 years, trying to get our schedules together, and we just couldn't make it happen.
Man. So I was going to ask about the writing process, but I guess you kind of answered it. Did you just send files back and forth, or did you guys spend any time actually getting together and working stuff out?
Yeah, it was all done. Okay, so those albums, or those 3 songs, I sent to him right as I was wrapping up the writing for Incorruptible, and then we had to focus on master tracking and touring, as I said. Then after that album cycle was finished for me, I went out I was really getting close to serious burnout. So I said, guys, I'm off. That's it. I told management and Hansi too. I said, he was actually the only person that I was in communication with when I was out I went on a month-long hike out in the desert mountains in Arizona and just by myself. I was with my guys in the band because we knew we were going on a hiatus for a while, and we spent a week together, and then I went for the remaining 3 weeks really on my own, camping and just being out in nature, and got totally recharged. And about 4 days after I flew back from there, I took off and went to Germany, and Hansi and I had our meetings and everything and put the whole plan together. Then he and I, started. I started here and at my studio, and I started sending him stuff, and by March of 2000, by March 15th, by my birthday of 2019, the album was written and recorded. The music was. The master tracking was done. Nice. So that was all done independently. He flew over in February for like 3 or 4 days, just for us to discuss final arrangements, and how, because I was getting very close to like being ready to start master tracking. So I needed to know, how many times are we going to repeat this verse? What are you feeling lyrically on some of these things and that kind of stuff. So it was just a matter of a few days of in person, but not really writing together, just making final arrangement decisions.
Well, John, I'm just listening through this album over and over. It's so diverse. I mean, it moves in all kinds of different directions, from really heavy and dark to progressive. Did you have an idea how you wanted to, the whole album to come out? I mean, because like I said, it goes in so many different ways in this album, which is really cool. Yeah, but was that your original plan?
No, it really wasn't. There was a certain vibe. If you listen to A New Dawn, Universal Truth, and the song Invincible, which was actually called Incorruptible, those 3 songs definitely have a vibe. So you can tell that I was in a specific headspace. If you were just to take those 3, they fit together in a way that is very different from the rest of 3. But so my only plan for this was, and I talked to Hansi about it, I said, I really want us to embrace we both love classic rock, and we always have. Since we were young men touring together, we talked about it. And I said, I wanted us to embrace that. I want to write a big, epic, classic rock kind of vibe song. And we ended up with 2. We got Children of Cain and Timeless Spirit. Timeless Spirit is totally a direct relation to my hike in Arizona. It's absolutely, that song wouldn't exist if that didn't happen. Okay. So that's a total correlation. But that's the only decision that was made. Now, the other thing that adds to the dynamic that people might not recognize is there's 4 tunings on this album, and that lends itself a lot to the dynamic feel. Whether people recognize that or not, you probably wouldn't unless you're picking up a guitar to try to figure it out. But there's a song in C sharp, there's 2 baritone songs, there's one in 440 in standard tuning, and then there's the typical E flat stuff that Hansi and I have been. It's on most of our records and most of the Iced Earth stuff too, and Blind Guardian as well. So it's got that adds to the dynamic flow, but it was just really, dude, it was all about channeling the energy. That's it. Right. It just was, after that hike, I was so inspired and recharged and excited, and Hansi and I always inspire each other. And, it just turned out to be a really great record. I think people are digging it. I know we do. We're happy with it, and that's really what matters the most.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I got a chance to watch a couple of your videos, of the new videos, one for Wolves in Winter and Diabolic. Yeah, those are really cool. And I got to commend you, dude. I love that Les Paul you got with the quilted maple, the red. Oh, it's freaking beautiful.
Thanks, man. I had that guitar. I bought that in like 2006 or 7, and it literally was in the case for 10 years, 11 years. I took it out on the U.S. tour. First time it's ever been on the road was on the Incorruptible North American leg. Oh. I took it out on that tour, and now I love it, so I'm using it all the time.
Yeah, I saw it in at Vakken when you were playing the last song, Fiddler on the Green, and it was like when the lights hit that thing just right, it's just like, wow. Just beautiful wood grain. Wow. Now, great sounding guitar, too.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the guitar I used. Well, I used a lot of different stuff on this record, but mostly it's that, and then I have another Les Paul that I call Smokin' Joe that will never go on tour. It's strictly a studio guitar because it's too special to go out and get jacked up on the road. So that's really my secret weapon with recording, and then so I layered between the quilt top and Smokin' Joe. Like when you hear Wolves in Winter, that's 8 rhythm guitars playing.
Holy cow.
4 of the quilt and 4 of the Smokin' Joe, which is also a badass. It's got a killer top too, but it's a tobacco burst.
Yeah.
Sounds unreal.
Yeah.
John, I know you guys did a little, you did some summer and fall touring with Demons and Wizards. Is there going to be any more touring, or is it now back to the Iced Earth stage of things?
It's no more touring for this and I'll tell you, man, I know people are going to be bummed about that. I'm not saying no more. It's not going to happen anytime in the immediate future because we both, we spent basically a little over a year on Demons and Wizards, and that's a lot to take away from our main. I mean, Hansi was still maintaining stuff, and they had, because they did have the orchestra album, And in that whole period, Andre's been writing a record, so he's pretty much done composing an album, and Hansi's already in pre-production on, new Blind Guardian stuff. Since I'm the chief songwriter in Iced Earth, I'm not, I've been consumed with the Demons thing, so I'm like, I got to take a break first, and then I'll start writing again in the middle of the year. But after I'm producing another band called Witherfall starting at the end of this month, and we're going to wrap up in the middle of May. And from that point, I'm going to take a couple months for myself and do what I did before this Demons record and get recharged, and then come back on the attack with Iced Earth. And we'll certainly have a new album and be out on the road again in 2021. But that's the initial plan. We just, we did this backwards because we got offered to headline Wacken, and we couldn't turn that down. So Hansi and I are like, holy shit. We got on FaceTime and we're like, dude, this just got real, but there's no way we're going to have a new album out by August of 2019. It was impossible to have it written and recorded then. And then we had this other, so we're like, okay, well, we're going to have to front load this. We'll tour first, then put the new album out. And, we could have done a handful of shows this year, but it wouldn't be doing the album justice. And we set the standard for a Demons and Wizards stage show. So in order to build a show built around 3, that requires a whole new big production that you can't just do that efficiently and go out and do a couple shows. You got to do a cycle to make it worth it, to make the investment worth it. So there's a lot of things that we have to consider. And besides that, we're both, we are committed to our own bands as well. I mean, we're committed to each other, but we have to do, the Iced Earth and Blind Guardian thing. So.
Well, I got to ask you about my favorite Iced Earth album is Glorious Burden. And
cool.
And Gettysburg just blows me away every time I listen to it. The way you've layered so many different parts of Americana into the song. How long did it take you to kind of piece that thing together? Because that is just epic.
Oh, man. Well, thank you for that. Honestly, man, I can't remember how long I spent on that. I guess, probably spent more time on that record overall than I have on a lot of them, because there was just so much, especially Gettysburg, there was so much thought put into that part of the record. And with the orchestral parts in there, that was, that song, if you mute the orchestra, it's not the same thing. I wrote it with those parts in mind. That's a big part of telling the story. You can't really, it's hard to make a rock heavy metal band version of Gettysburg and make it really cool, but I guess probably a good 6 or 7 months I focused not just on that track, but on the writing and the pre-production of that album. Some of them go faster than others. It just depends on what the subject matter is, what the goals are, what the inspiration, how I'm feeling during the time. Sometimes it just boom, it goes fast. 3 went really fast.
Wow.
Really fast. So you never know. It's just all about being in the right headspace.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite tunes on the album here is Timeless Spirit, but I got a question. Do you think that song could have used a little cowbell?
No.
It's a nice mellow song. Don't you think a little cowbell would have just brought that right out?
Right, yeah. That's perfect coming from guys from Wisconsin.
Exactly.
Land of cheese.
That's
get it? Yeah. But no cowbell in Timeless Spirit. No.
Well, we're going to play another one, John, off Demons and Wizards. We're going to play Midas Disease, and you want to tell us what the thinking behind that tune is, because I dig this song.
Well, it was just fucking around in the studio, man, during the Incorruptible writing, and I have a really badass Telecaster and this Class A head it's a knockoff of an amp called the Trainwreck, and it's just got this certain snarl to it, and I started playing it, and this riff comes, and I'm like, man, that sounds like something Malcolm would have come up with. It's got this total AC/DC, and I started building it, and I'm like, God, this is cool. This isn't anything like an Iced Earth song, and it was during the Incorruptible sessions, and I was like, and I did about half of it, and then I just stopped, and I thought, if I ever use that someday, it's going to be dedicated to Malcolm, because that's got the whole vibe, the AC/DC vibe going on, at least from my side. I know everybody talks about Wasp from Hansi's side, and I've always said that, even since we first met each other, that he reminds me of Blackie sometimes.
That's what Red.
He wasn't never. He never was like, why